Right, in your presentation. However, there are some constitutional and legal developments. Like we have our absolute fundamental rights in the Constitution against untouchability, that no one shall be discriminated on the ground of being untouchable. We have ratified racial discrimination convention, so there are certain obligations under it. And there are some positive court interventions, like in one of the cases where a very well-known person was denied to enter into a very famous temple called Pashupatinath Temple. He filed a case in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that no one should be stopped actually being a particular caste to enter into any temple. So that led to many movements to enter to many temples actually around the country as a result of that case. And there are some leading cases, like only Brahmin student can go to particular school to study Vedas, where the Supreme Court has said no, you cannot discriminate. That's a discrimination. So some people, still there are problems on getting admissions, but the court has striked out that kind of practices. And there was a very famous case where one organization called Lanka filed for the effective implementation of the legal provision on the racial discrimination, including untouchability, and the Supreme Court ordered to have effective law. And based on that, there is an amendment in the civil code, which is the general code of the country, general law of the country, and even that was not effective. And there is a specific act actually for the punishment of the untouchability related acts. However, despite of these all practices, and despite a very good court cases having a separate fundamental rights in the Constitution, actually the practice goes on. The FIR are either not registered, if they are registered, forced to negotiate, and they do not go for the investigations. There are very few cases actually where people are either punished in terms of fine and imprisonment. Very little cases. These kind of discriminations either happens in person or in group. So I have seen some friends monitoring these events from around the country and preparing documents. So as if we think nothing is happening, because I'm not from that community, but when I go and see my friends, their documentation shows that the practice around the country it was before, despite of these constitutional and legal provisions. So this is what to share from Nepal.
In Sri Lanka, basically, among the Sinhalese, before 1947, these caste differences were available. But in 1947, the free education, public education system, after introducing the public education system, among the Sinhalese, most of these caste differences were eliminated. But still is there, but not that much. But as far as the Tamil areas are concerned, still these differences are available. But I just want to say, after giving equal opportunities for the access to the education, most of the caste differences were eliminated in Sri Lanka among the Sinhala areas. That's what I want to.
I just want to add for his comment, because I'm a Tamil, and when you consider Tamil, we have a personal law called Kesavalamai for the northern Tamil people. And it was a long-standing enactment, and it has this caste system accepted by law in the Kesavalamai. And in 50s, there was an amendment came to the Kesavalamai, and they took it off after this education program. And now, even in Jaffna Tamil areas also, they don't follow this as a practice. And the only thing when it's come for like family matters or weddings or something like that, only it will become a big problem. Otherwise, in the environment of employment or education wise, they don't practice that much. Thank you.
Anybody?
I want to share my experience because many people think that there is no untouchability among Muslims, and especially in the province of Punjab and the city that I come from. There are Hindus in the province of Sindh in Pakistan. There are very few Hindus in the province of Punjab, but there are a significant number of Christians in Punjab who converted to Christianity over the last 150 years or so, and they were Dalits. And we are told that, pardon me for using this term if it's derogatory in any way, that they are of Dravidian origins. They are, kept away from the other localities where Muslims reside, and their class structure doesn't allow them to intermingle with other communities. Then, of course, they have certain significant appearances which makes them, distinct from the rest of the population. They also are busy, involved in certain very specific kind of professions, and professions which are looked down upon, as you also referred to in your presentation. And even the most liberal of people in our cities and elsewhere in smaller towns, they don't want to intermingle with those people. And when some Christian comes to my office, or for that matter, I call someone to meet me at my home, and I ask him or her to sit down, she wouldn't sit down, because that's something very rare to offer to a Christian who is of the scheduled caste or the Dalit origin.
Anybody?
See, I will just speak on part of the Muslims itself as to whether there is caste-based discrimination or not. In Muslims, we earlier had, we have Sayyids and we have other castes also. In Sayyids, the prevailing practice was that, they never used to get their those daughters married to other castes. But there was a religious, touch attached to that very thing. And that was that, it depended on the biological things that, in terms of, intercaste, in terms of your own caste. For example, Sayyids, if you marry a Sayyid within your family, that helps, you biologically. But later on, this thing, which was though it was good in terms of biology itself, later on it turned out to be a kind of a discriminatory practice, which really got, so deep rooted that, there was really, enough of discrimination on the basis of this thing later on. Thank you.
Before we... Anybody?
Yes.
Talking about Sayyid family, I also belong to a Sayyid family, and this is right, we are still not allowed to marry a non-Sayyid, or especially Pathans. I can't get married to a Pathan or a Kashmiri. We can get married to a Punjabi guy or Sindhi guy, but not the Pathans or the Dalits, and still we are not allowed to get married to a non-Sayyid.
Any questions?
There is one hand at the end.
Where?
I just wanted to say a few things just to add to what Prasad was saying. I'm a little skeptical about saying, because it's also very important where it comes from. But in the peculiar situation in India,
and I don't think it's very different. It should be any different in the other South Asian countries. So if you look at Christianity, for example, or even Sikhism, or for that matter, even Islam, and we have a very bad blind spot about it, is we practice untouchability. In Christianity, we practice untouchability. In Islam, we practice untouchability among the Sikhs. So, and it's, so if you, there's this very close friend of ours, Ashraf, from Chand Sahas in Madhya Pradesh, and he works among the Dalit Muslims, yeah, whose children are not allowed into the masjid. They're not a part of the Jamaat because they do the manual scavenging work. So, it's a massive blind spot among the Muslim community to not look at it, to not discuss it, and so much so that Ashraf says also that every time I raise it, my people, he says, I call myself a Muslim. Do others recognize me as a Muslim? Yeah, and he's told very often not to raise the issue, not to highlight it because it brings the community down. But the reality of and his analysis is beautiful. That based on which time slot you convert it into would establish your rights and prejudices. So in Goa, for that matter, if you look at how based on which caste you convert it from to say Christianity or Islam, your surname changed. So there's a beautiful analysis about how you could be a let's say. So there's a very interesting analysis about how a surname, based on which caste you go from. So you'd have the Costas, and then you'd have the DeCostas. You'd have the Sousas and the D'Souza's, or the De Mellos and the Mellos. So the Brahmins who converted always had the D and the apostrophe added to their name from that estate. And the non-Brahmins only took the Mello and the Sas and the Ds. So there is so much to our own existence that we don't... so even in Kerala, if you're a Syrian Christian, and God forbid you're a girl in a Syrian Christian family who gets married to a Christian who is not from the Syrian Christian bloodline, and is as good as an untouchable, she will get killed, the boy will get killed. So I don't think that it is the caste system, because after all the caste system it's a master key, it opens the doors, gates, so people don't want to lose that identity. And one of this, even for the civil rights, civil society movement in India, one of the most, for all of our evolved consciousness, our greatest blind spot vis-a-vis the caste system was to ignore what Lohia formulated in the 60s. No, please drop your surname. If the caste system is such a big problem with you, please drop your surname. And you will do so much of damage to the caste consciousness in the country. But you will see the biggest proponents of human rights not drop their surname, because it is such a great access system to resources, to the entire process, and it's very sad. But Prasad, you all have done some assessment of NGOs about how caste Hindus the NGOs in India are, and how Brahmins will dominate most of the NGOs in the country.